All right, friends, welcome back to Sons Today. I am Adam, and a under the weather Brian W. Peterson has decided that it is too important to talk about the Knights' victory that he will not miss it. And despite the fact he's playing hurt, all right, so not all the Warriors are only on the field. Brian Peterson, you are with us today, and you're here to break down the game, buddy. Appreciate you as always.
Yeah, when you're this late in the season, Adam, you got to expect some injuries, and
That's right.
I'm struggling. I'm fighting through the injuries here. I'm not really injured. I'm just a little under the weather today, so I apologize to anybody listening if my voice sounds a little off. But we'll make it through to talk about this Knights win over Oklahoma State.
Well, speaking of things that were a little off, Brian, the offense was a little off for UCF, but it came to life at least twice, which is candidly really all we probably needed. The defense carries the game again. A 1-9 Oklahoma State team gives UCF pretty much all they can handle. A scare reverberates throughout Knight Nation, but fear not. Your Knights pull out a 17-14 victory, Brian. Win 5 on the season. Second conference win of the year for UCF. I think this is the most ever conference games UCF's won in a season with 2. So that's something to hang your hat on if you'd like to do that, Brian. But your initial thoughts here, 17-14, it was ugly. It wasn't pretty. There are some times where you had to hide the women and children because I didn't know what was going to happen in this thing, but the Knights pull it out.
Yeah, definitely a tale of two halves in this game. Oklahoma State has struggled all year long, as you alluded to. They have won one game all year long, and I believe it was against an FCS opponent.
It was the first one. They were on a 9-game losing streak.
Yeah, they're now it's a 10-game losing streak. So they're not a very good team if you want to summarize the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And their offense has just been atrocious all season long. So coming into this game, you thought, okay, UCF, feeling pretty confident about their defensive unit being the strength of this team. And Oklahoma State being unable to really produce much on offense this season, you felt pretty good about your chances. And Oklahoma State said, hold my beer. I'm going to come out and I'm going to start scoring on the first drive and make a statement. And they really carried that first half of the game. Knights falling 14-0 in the first half, shutout in the first half. And it took a second half comeback by the Knights and a game-winning field goal by Lou Groza finalist Noe Ruelas to get us into the win column. So, like I said, a tale of two halves and not a pretty game to watch, but the Knights managed to pull out the win and send their seniors off with a win in the bounce house.
This game had Jacksonville State vibes, Brian, which was obviously the first game of the season, right? Where it just seemed like things were a little bit constipated, I think the word I used back then on offense. And the defense kind of held it together, a couple of key stops down the end, and obviously UCF comes out with a victory. But I mean, here we are, Brian. This was game 11 for the Knights. And, we do this after every game, and we keep talking about at this point that Frost said it best post game. We are who we are. Like this is what to if UCF's going to win games, they're going to have to win games in ugly fashions, right? I mean, sure, we had 2 blowouts against North Carolina and West Virginia, but I don't think that's representative of what this team was really about. I think this is the kind of game that UCF's going to have to play and going to have to win. And with 1 to go, we'll get to BYU in a second, but it's not going to be pretty. It was never going to be pretty. And somehow UCF comes out with a win. We just are who we are at this point. And could have been worse, right? Like you get the victory. I think you have to celebrate the win that you get. Latavius Murray says to me every week, winning is hard. Don't apologize when you do it, even if it doesn't look pretty. It's still a win on the win column. Still gets UCF to that 5-win mark, one more than 2024, which not sure how to think about all that stuff, Brian. But it was ugly, but like a win's a win, right? Like I feel like I know that the sky is falling and I know this doesn't look pretty and everyone on paper was like, we should beat this team by 40, right? And no, we didn't. But this was the way the team was probably going to be constructed to play throughout the season. And at least they came out with the win. Scott Frost winning another close game, something he had not done pretty often in his career. Another close win for Frost. And again, a conference win against an opponent you're supposed to beat.
Yeah, some key stats for you here. Taven Jackson went 16 of 25, 271 yards. He's close to breaking that 300-yard number. He can't quite seem to get over that 300-yard passing number in any single game. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. The picks were, at least one of them was a pretty bad pick. The other one I'll give him a break on because it was batted at the line and bounced up into the air. But one fairly bad pick.
And he
It
had a
felt like,
couple of throws too, Brian, that he could have had picked. He threw one into triple coverage
yes,
against Wade and Charlotte. Like he
there
was
was
a
a few of
little
those.
bit, yeah, he was a little bit negligent and reckless with the football, especially in the first half.
I was surprised when I went back and looked at the stats because it didn't feel like he threw for 271 yards in that game. It felt like every time he threw the ball, it was either a drop or, as you said, a throw into double or triple coverage. But he did manage 2 touchdowns and the 2 picks. Dylan Wade went off. He had 4 catches, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns from him that sealed the game. Without him, we don't win this game. Of course, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, Zane Flores, or Floors, as they were saying. I don't know if it's Flores or Floors.
They were saying floors too. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know what I'm supposed to say about this, so I'll leave it alone.
Yeah. Flores,
Not sure what I'm allowed to say.
Whatever your cup of tea is, also threw 1 touchdown and 1 interception. So not a great offensive performance by either team. 15 or 14-17 final score. Knights getting this one. 396 yards of total offense for the Knights, which again, I don't know where that came from because it felt like this game was just slow and painful to watch. Oklahoma State only managing 228. The story is really the second half, and the defense really held Oklahoma State. They shut them out, did not let them get anywhere close to scoring. So I think that if you're going to give a game ball to anybody, it's got to go to either the defense or to Dylan Wade if you're going to give one to the offense as well. Really good performances, despite the defense allowing 2 first half touchdowns against an Oklahoma State offense, which has struggled all year long. But I think Scott Frost mentioned that, they came out fired up in the second half and performed well on the field.
Well, on the broadcast, I think Leger Douzable mentioned, usually teams script out those first 12, 15 plays, and it felt like Oklahoma State really had a good initial plan in place. UCF was not up to the challenge. It seems to be the themes of this season were in this game, Brian. The only difference was UCF obviously flips the scoreboard, right? You saw more pre-snap penalties, more offensive line miscues and gaffes. You saw a slow start by both the offense and the defense, right? You saw an inconsistent Taven Jackson. You saw a running game that at times looked like it could do no wrong, that at times was going backwards, right? You saw a couple of gaffes on special teams. Antoine Jackson with a fair catch at the 2, which is not a spot you ever want to fair catch the ball at. And
Twitter was blowing up at that.
And even Neri 40 yards, I guess, on punts, but he had one that I think they wanted him to pin. It literally went right in the back of the end zone. So everything that we saw from this team, everything that's become the DNA of this team was on display on Saturday. With the main difference being when they had to step up and have somebody make a couple of key plays, they were able to do that. I think, look, right, if we don't come out in that second half, Brian, and that first play is not 83-yard touchdown to Dylan Wade, and that's another crappy drive. Like, I think that was a real shot in the arm for this team to say, okay, now we're back in this thing. Now we can settle in a little bit too. But if we had done the thing that UCF had done throughout the season, which was 3 and out, run 2 times into the heart of the line for -6 yards, have a false start, and then be 3rd and 13 on your own 10. Like, that's been UCF all year. But that play coming out of the second half, I think, really swung that momentum. And I think at that point, as you said, everybody kind of stepped in a little bit. The defense kind of, bowed up and Taven Jackson and that team can make just enough plays.
Yeah, I really think that touchdown, it was an 80-plus yard touchdown pass that really got this Knights team fired up and brought the momentum back to the UCF side of things. Because, I mean, as you said, that first half was all Oklahoma State. It was not pretty. Most fans, myself included, were not happy on social media about the way things were going. And that touchdown brought this team back, made it a game again. And that's when the defense then stepped up and held them to 22 yards of offense in the second half. So they had, I mean, it was, I didn't look, but I think it was 4 back-to-back 3-and-outs by the defense to get the ball back to UCF. And of course, the offense struggled to do much with that, but they did end up getting a second touchdown and then that field goal in the end to take the victory from Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, who seems to have UCF as their kryptonite, they seem to be the Big 12 team that we're able to beat and consistently. So I hope that trend continues. But you mentioned the penalties. Again, the penalties are a problem for the Knights. Pre-snap penalties specifically on offense being the big killer of offensive drives, especially again in this game. They reared their head again. UCF penalized 10 times for almost 75 yards in this game. Oklahoma State, by comparison, only had 2 penalties for 20 yards. So, I mean, if you're looking at a team that fired their head coach halfway through the season, only grabbing 2 penalties on the road, in a bounce house that was fairly rambunctious a little bit. The crowd shots looked okay for a team that's struggling this season. It sounds like the crowd showed up and did their part to help the Knights. But again, the penalties, just UCF struggling with these pre-snap penalties, and Coach Frost mentioned those penalties, and he said at this point we are who we are, right? You know, we're 11 games into the season, and we're going to have to own that. Coaches are going to have to own that. He's going to have to own that, and so are these players. So hopefully that's something that they're able to maybe clean up a little bit. I don't know how much of that you're able to clean up going into game 12 of the season, but hopefully if it does rear its head again, it's not going to be a game-causing issue like it nearly was in this one.
Couple things to clean up for you there. You're correct. 4 straight 3-and-outs for Oklahoma State's offensively. Their next possession, they went 5 plays and punt, and last possession interception. So UCF a great job defensively in the second half. Their penalties, again, we are who we are at this point. Like every week, we keep hoping you're going to see improvement. We're going to get better at this. Maybe the line shuffling is going to change. It just hasn't. And let's expect that it's going to happen. And how do you kind of plan around that? Some of these were new ones, though. I did appreciate the new ones where everybody but the center moved and the center snapped early one time. At least we got some new.
It's all about variety.
Yeah, at least it wasn't just your garden variety false start. Like we were doing some new stuff, which I thought was cool. But no, I mean, like that's just the way this team is. I thought, Scott Frost said after Texas Tech that this was the season, right? This was the season, and clearly afterwards, even post game, and I know Frost can't dictate the questions that were asked of him, but somebody asked him a question about, I think it was Darren Stoltzfus from Wesh, about something like, "Hey, you're having fun? Like, is this as fun as you thought it was?" And he was like, "Not really, because I don't want to lose, and I don't want to lose, and I'm not having fun when we lose, and I didn't have fun the first time I was here in my first year when we lost, but things got better, and the team," and he started to almost kind of talk about the future, right? And then he was like, "Oh no, but we have one more game. We're gonna play one more." But you can almost kind of see. I'm not saying we're gonna mail it in against BYU, but you can kind of see. I think a lot of eggs went to this basket, and Frost himself said this thing was an ugly game, and this is kind of what UCF has looked like throughout the year. Brian is ugly games, but key plays were made when they had to be made. Dylan Wade, again, 2 big touchdown passes. Look, there's a lot of interesting referendum now on Taven Jackson, right? I think with everything going on with quarterback, I think a lot of folks assume and are maybe hoping, I guess is probably the word I'll use, that perhaps Taven Jackson isn't back with UCF next season. I'm not sure that's fair, but I understand if you watch him play and you say, "Hey, maybe I want something a little bit better at quarterback." I get that part of it too. So it kind of became a referendum on Taven that first half. People were tweeting, "Get him out of the game. Where's Davi? Let's do this." Right. And so again, you have to tip your cap a little bit to the kid. He came back second half and made a couple of plays there, but there were certainly some people there that, I think were probably a little bit like, "Hey, do we really need to have Taven Jackson back on the field?"
Yep, my son's hanging in the game here.
I hear.
Sorry about that. We got an interruption here. Max is, come here, buddy.
Did he enjoy the game as much as everybody else did?
He did.
Hi, Allie.
Hi,
Allie.
We're having a good time here. Oh, look, the dog is here too.
Everyone's
this
here.
Podcast has completely gone off the rails.
It's the family edition of the Sons.
Family edition of Sons today. So you mentioned Taven. So the thing about Taven is he's been banged up all season long. And I don't know that we've gotten a good read on whether or not Taven is the guy that we think he is or not. Consider that we started the season with 4 quarterbacks. We're down to 2 now. Obviously, Jakuri getting that shoulder injury took him out of the game. Cam got hurt in the first game, has broken ribs by the end of the season. And even Taven himself has had shoulder injuries. He's had a hamstring injury reportedly. So there's all kinds of injuries that he's had that I think are.
He was limping in this game too. He got
hit. And he was limping. He got hit and got up limping. Yeah. And at that point, I think I had messaged you in the group chat that we were in saying, are we going to see Davi come in at this point? Because he's taken some hits this year. So I don't know that we're getting Taven at his best. I don't know that we can really evaluate his performance, especially with the offensive line struggles that we've had all season long. I think the big takeaway for me is not necessarily Taven's quarterback play. It's the fact that he was under duress all game long. Oklahoma State was in the backfield almost every play. I mean, there were multiple times where the ball was snapped and he had pressure in his face immediately. The offensive line for UCF simply could not block. They were getting cut up like Swiss cheese. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's playing with an arm tied behind his back. I think with a more competent offensive line, with a run game that perhaps can support the passing game, I think that he would be better. And Scott Frost mentioned this in his post-game presser. He said, and I don't want to get the words wrong, so I'll paraphrase. He said that when Taven's good, he's good. Like when he makes good plays, he makes really good plays. So I think that there are flashes that we have seen from Taven that give you hope that he can be, the quarterback to lead this team. I'm really curious to see what happens with him in the offseason. Does he come back? Obviously we have the other breaking news this week is that UCF got a commitment from a 4-star quarterback, Rocco Marriott. So does UCF pivot and make a change at quarterback? Do we stick with Taven? There's rumors that Cam Fancher is going to try and get a medical red shirt this season because he's injured. What are they going to do in the offseason? But I'll give Taven the benefit of the doubt that, he struggled because this team, the offense overall has struggled and he's been playing with an arm behind his back.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's fair to say he's been inconsistent, and I think you saw that even in this game. But when a couple of throws had to be made, he made those throws to get UCF into a victory. And I love the Scott Frost quote, which essentially is 50% of the time he's right all the time. Right? Like, when he's right, when he's not, though he's not. Look, I'll also say this: like you can tell there, and I'm not a football player, so I'm not questioning his toughness, but I think you were or some, maybe it was Nick Williams on Twitter. There was a sack that Taven took, and it didn't look like he got touched very much. It looked like the pocket kind of collapsed and he just kind of fell to the ground. And then there was a play later on in the game where Taven actually scrambled, which he did a lot more in this game. He had 34 rush yards, which we haven't seen Taven really out of the pocket in a while. And he was going towards the sidelines, and it was one of those plays where he's angling out of bounds and a defender's kind of running at him. And the defender kind of just does a quick flinch. You see Taven literally take the ball, bow down, bracing himself for a hit. Like you can tell this kid has been hit a ton. And maybe at this point, he's not really excited about contact.
I don't blame him.
And again, I'm not questioning his toughness, but I think it certainly is a factor in maybe how you're playing. If you're already banged up, you already don't feel right, and you're going to get hammered left and right, maybe that's a little bit. I will say this, I'm okay with Davi getting some run, but everybody and their grandmother knows right now when Davi comes in, it's going to be a run play, right? Oklahoma State clearly knew that, represented by Davi's two carries for 1 yard. Everybody kind of knows that Davi's going to run it when he's in the game, and clearly Oklahoma State keyed on that. So if you're not going to let Davi at least be a threat to throw the ball, if you're not going to even make the other team think he may throw the ball, then you're not helping Taven at all, right? Because you're only taking 2 hits off of his body because Davi came in, did nothing, and all of a sudden we're back to Taven. So let's see how the quarterback thing evolves at BYU. I guess we have one more game to figure this out. But while I'm certainly not going to give Taven the player of the game, I do think it's appropriate to say when a couple of key things had to happen, he was able to make those key plays. You add that onto a really good defense and getting stops and maybe an inept Oklahoma State offense second half. And this is the recipe for a night's win. It's not the sexy UC faster we were all looking for. It's not the 48-0 wins I think we all thought we were going to have, but there's a lot of ways to win a game. And UCF's figured some of them out this year. They figured out ways to lose games. Again, I think it's fair for us to at least acknowledge, while it was ugly, when it mattered, people who had to step up and make plays made plays.
You alluded to Coach Frost's comments in the presser that, he's not having a ton of fun because he likes to win. And to elaborate, when he answered that question in the post-game presser, he said that, honestly, it feels a lot like the 2016 season because there's just so many different things to fix. And you're just coming at it from all different angles. And I know we've had this discussion and people have made parallels to the 2016 season. I mean, if you think back to that season, folks, we had some struggles on offense back then too. We had a quarterback that really struggled. If I recall, he got booed on the field during our bowl game against Arkansas State. So this is not, new territory for UCF or for Coach Frost. So I think he understands what he's got to work with now and what needs to be fixed moving into the 2026 season. So I'm really curious to see, what they do. Obviously, they have got this BYU game. They're going to Provo this week. They're going to see what they can do there. But assuming that UCF does not come out with a victory on Saturday, their season is effectively over. There is no bowl game on the schedule at that point. So they're going to go to work and they're going to figure out what they're going to do in the offseason. And I'm curious to see what this staff does at the quarterback position.
Yeah, let's get to that here. A couple quick other notes I want to throw in here. Last week, admittedly in a bad place I was after the Texas Tech, right? I think a lot of us were in a tough spot after watching that shellacking. And one of the things I said to you aloud, and you correctly sort of gave me a therapy session or sort of kind of did the thing with your dog where you kind of put their nose in the poop, right? Like you were kind of like, hey, Adam, you're lamenting some of these things, but like, do we really want any of these guys back? The one thing I did appreciate out of this game, Wade and Charles, 6 catches, 78 yards. And we've talked about, like, are there going to be some young stars on this team maybe that you can go, hey, we feel something good about? So I do want to acknowledge last week I was critical that it didn't feel like we had that. So I want to acknowledge and at least do a mea culpa, Wade and Charles, Dylan Wade, 2 players who have eligibility left. So hopefully they come back to UCF next season, obviously played well. And then defensively, again, Lewis Carter, I think, was flying around everywhere as well. Braden Marshall, I think, has a year left. So this game, I
and he was injured too.
And he was. Where are the pieces in this game, right? You did see some of those things, obviously, bear out. And again, not pretty, probably not the way any of us would have wanted this win. There are probably some out in the fan base that go, how can we only beat a 1-9 team by 3 points? We're garbage, we're trash. And yeah, we're not a really good football team. I think even Scott Frost said that. Like, we're not where we want to be right now, but you have to at least applaud the fact that come out with the win, Brian. But that sets them up now Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern kick, 11 a.m. local time for UCF to travel to Provo to take on BYU. BYU needs to win that game, Ryan, to get to the Big 12 championship game. So we are the only thing on their way of a Big 12 championship. 18-point favorite is BYU, if I saw that right now. ESPN Predictor has them like a 94% prediction to win this game. UCF has to win this if they want to get 6 wins and even get in the conversation for bowl eligibility, Brian. So a lot is on the line on this game, which is kind of interesting. So you've got what? You've had 12 hours or so to kind of think about this so far, and obviously we still have a week's worth of time. But early reactions to what Brian Peterson expects to happen for UCF and BYU.
Enjoy the mountains because it's going to be the only pretty thing that's going on in Provo. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Anybody who's expecting UCF to come out of this game with a victory, I'm afraid you're sadly
we got him right where we want him, though, Brian. Do we have?
We got him right where we want him. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, hey,
we're back.
I think you said what they opened it as a 16-point favorite over us and
18.
Okay, we were 16-point favorites over Oklahoma State, and look what happened there. They almost beat us. So anything is possible.
Oh, right where we want him.
Anything is possible, but chances are. Bet the house on BYU, not on the Knights, guys.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, this is the problem with fandom, Brian, and hope. It's like the ultimate drug because you talk yourself into, well, maybe we could go in there and surprise these guys. Like, we got nothing to play for. We got nothing to lose. Like, kitchen sink game, throw everything. And then you do that thing where you're like, wait a minute.
No.
That seems unlikely here. It would be so UCF to figure out a way to spoil the Big 12 here and get in the way and piss everybody off and somehow come out.
We're due for one. We haven't played spoiler in a while.
Right where we want them, Brian.
Nice. Yeah, we're right where we want them.
Right where we want them to. But obviously a tough task for the Knights going into Utah. And again, I'm not saying that Frost and the team are kind of writing it off, but it felt like a lot of eggs were put in the basket of the Oklahoma State game. And now Frost is maybe looking towards the future. Maybe the team's looking towards the future. One final game, who wants in, who wants out. Here's the thing though, like I don't care if we actually go to a bowl game. By that, I mean, like, if I don't physically want us to have to go play the Birmingham Bowl, there are probably actually better uses of our time as a team right now if coaches and players are not tied up having to prepare for a bowl game. However, the 6-win mark is the low point of how college athletics and college football determines, I guess, your season. So I wouldn't mind getting to that 6-win mark just to say, hey, we at least got to the very bottom of what's expected. But I do think it's an uphill battle for the Knights. I mean, I'll cheer, I'll root, I'll hope, but I go into this game with the thought process of this is going to be a really, really tough task. It's going to take a special performance by a couple of different guys, probably BYU shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, and then maybe even some luck and some craziness for the Knights to come out on top on Saturday at BYU.
I mean, this isn't like an NFL game, guys, where they're going to rest their starters and save their energy for the playoff. They need to win this game in order to make the Big 12 championship game. So they're going to come out ready to play, I have no doubt. And it's a home game for them too. And BYU is not an easy place to play at. Their crowd is loud. It gets full in there pretty quick. And they've got a fairly large stadium. I think it's 60,000 plus.
They play a lot of night games, though, Brian. They play a lot of night games.
Play a lot of night games.
It's an oddity that this one is a day game, but yeah, it's still against a lot.
I was surprised when they released the kickoff time. I expected this to be like a 10 o'clock Eastern time kick for us. I figured they would have given BYU a night game. So I mean, we'll see. Maybe they come out a little flat because it's an 11 a.m. kick for them and they're used to a night game, but. This is a tall task ahead of this Knights team, and I'm sure that Scott Frost and company are going to pull out all the stops. But we'll see what kind of crazy plays that Scott Frost can come up with. He mentioned that Oklahoma State actually, obviously they script those first few drives in every game, and he mentioned that Oklahoma State came out with a bunch of tricks up their sleeves. So perhaps we see something out of this Knights team where they come out and if we can get ahead and jump out to a 14-point lead like Oklahoma State did and kind of put BYU on their heels, punch them in the mouth, maybe there's hope for us. But I think that this is a BYU team that's certainly making a push for the college football playoff, and they'll be ready for us on Saturday.
63,000 capacity is the Lavelle Edwards Stadium. So yes, obviously there will be a lot of folks in that stadium yelling and screaming. Not a lot of Knights, I imagine, coming off of Thanksgiving weekend, such a far trip away. Although I guess if you had to think about places in the Big 12 you'd want to go visit, I'm sure a lot of people would probably want to go here, but I just don't know if timing, how this works out with that too. Hearing some people who were thinking about it are already like, well, it's on TV, I could just watch it. So we'll see what the crowd looks like. I would love, Brian, on that point you were just making about are the tricks up our sleeve and all this stuff, right? Like I think Scott Frost has been very transparent without saying it, which was like, there's only so much these guys can handle, and I'm stretching the limits to get them to run the stuff I want them to run. And I think he's even said before, like if we try to do anything unique, and sometimes, like I think I would love to. I would start a GoFundMe and pay a significant amount of money to get Scott Frost shot up with some truth serum and tell us really like week to week, like how this was working for him in terms of game plan, because I suspect what he's kind of told us in pieces, which is there's only so much these guys can handle. Like, yeah, I'd love your hope to be true. We're coming out with some razzle dazzle and we're doing all kinds of like pitchy woo woo stuff. Right. But I says, we can barely snap a 3rd and 1. So I imagine he's like, there's no chance of that, but I'd love to see it. But I'd pay a pretty amount of money to get some truth serum into Scott Frost and give him the opportunity to tell us what really happens behind the scenes this season.
I mean, he's been pretty honest, I think, throughout all of his pressers all year long. If you go back and you listen to the progression throughout the year, at one point he's like, yeah, I guess I could have been a little more creative with the play calling, and maybe that would have gotten us a victory here, and that was earlier in the season. And then later on in the season, he's like, yeah, maybe I got a little too cute and our offense couldn't handle this and we had to dial things back and simplify for them. So I think you're probably right on there, Adam, that they're not going to go anything too crazy on Saturday. We won't see them try, because they're just going to false start or they're going to snap the ball over the quarterback's head again.
Yes.
These issues that we've had all year long are going to show themselves again. But it would be nice to think that they're going to come out there with a couple of trick plays and maybe jump up to an early lead. I'll be curious to see if they win the coin toss. Do they elect to defer in the second half, or they want the ball?
That seems to be a recipe for disaster. We've done the same thing where we defer every time, and then the other team goes down in like 6.2 seconds, and it's 7-0, and then we 3 and out, and then it's 14. It seems like that's been the script of every row. I would love just for one time this season, just to watch a road game and have UCF be in it a little bit, right? Have a little bit of spark, have a little bit of spunk, have a little bit of like, all right, like where we're here, like having people tweeting like, whoa, what's going on in Provo? UCF with it. Like, I'd love to see that. It has not happened yet this season. I would
It
love at
hasn't
some
happened
point.
since TCU last season.
I would just like, I'm not saying we have to win, but at least let's put a little scare. Let's go in there with kind of nothing to lose. Like, hey, season's over anyway. Like a ton of seniors walked, Brian. So we don't know who's coming back. Like, I would love to see that happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath, nor will I bet any amount of money on UCF at least that has any sort of meaning to me. But Trey Strelko will be making the trip, so we will have Sons of UCF coverage from the lovely state of Utah post Thanksgiving, and we'll have all week to kind of talk through all that stuff too, Brian. But you mentioned the other news that broke almost right around a kickoff time on Saturday, which is UCF gets a commitment from. I think I saw Rivals has him as a 4-star quarterback recruit, 6'4", Rocco
correct.
Marriott out of Platte County, Missouri. Previously committed to JMU. Again, a Missouri kid, and there was some thought maybe Missouri would be in on him. You started kind of hearing whispers late in the week of people saying, hey, watch for a flip here, watch for a flip here. And then obviously he announces, and I saw obviously a lot of folks confirming it with Hayes Fawcett, all those guys. Rocco Marriott verbally commits to UCF. Early signing day starts December 2nd, Brian. So in theory, pen could go to paper here as early as 10 or so days from where we are, Brian. But how do you, in the day of 2025, how do you, Brian Peterson, the fan, the realist, the optimist, everything you want to be in yourself, think about a high school recruit? How excited do you allow yourself to get over things like this?
I haven't gotten excited about a high school recruit since we recruited Dylan Gabriel back at the end of 2018. So going into the 2019 season, I vividly remember watching the live stream of Dylan commit and sign to play for the Knights. And he was a big name at the time because everybody said he was the second coming of Mackenzie Milton, Milton 2.0, and he was from Hawaii and from the same high school, and they had connections there. So everybody was pretty high on him, and obviously for good reason. The guy's playing in the NFL now. We know what kind of career he had at UCF, and was a prolific quarterback, at least at the college level. This is the first quarterback since Dylan Gabriel that's kind of caught my attention. The other name that had been floating around out there was Kane Archer, who is another high school recruit who's actually not quite rated as high as Rocco Marriott is. And he was originally committed to the Knights, decommitted on Saturday once the news broke that, Rocco Marriott was flipping his commitment from James Madison over to UCF. So I haven't done a ton of research on Rocco. Obviously, he was not the name that was associated with UCF up until this recent late push. So I'm really curious to see. I'm going to go back and do some research on him and see. I mean, obviously, you've never seen a bad highlight tape, is the thing that we put out there, but he's got this, the physical size of a quarterback that you want to see. He's 6'3". He's 220 pounds, I think is what he is, 6'4", maybe somewhere in that range. So he's more of a prototypical style quarterback that we haven't had since the Blake Bortles era. I mean, we really haven't had a big quarterback with a pair of legs on him that can move. So I'm really curious to see what Scott Frost does with him. And now that begs the question, assuming that he does sign in December, moving into the 2026 season, what do you do if you're Scott Frost? Do you play this young freshman, or do you bring back a Taven Jackson or a Cam Fancher if he gets that medical red shirt, or do you go out into the portal and get another veteran quarterback? And when you play these freshman quarterbacks, it kind of feels like a lost season, right? We saw that in 2016 with Mackenzie Milton, who was kind of shoved into the deep end of the pool. I don't know what this coaching staff is going to want to do with him, especially in this transfer portal era. A lot of these guys come out of high school expecting to play now. Yeah. And if you don't play him, do you run the risk that you're going to have a Tommy Castellano situation where he's going to enter the transfer portal because he thought he was going to start and then it doesn't end up starting. So, I mean, obviously good news for UCF to get this highly rated quarterback. I think this makes him the highest rated quarterback that UCF will have signed. Again, assuming, fingers crossed, that he does sign. in the early signing period. He was at the game, I believe, on Saturday,
Yeah.
watching this performance. So if you're a
Hopefully he
quarterback,
left early, Brian. Hopefully
yeah,
he left
hopefully,
early.
well, hopefully not too early. Hopefully he saw us win the game.
Maybe he had something to
Hopefully,
do, hopefully, and didn't check out the rest of that game.
yeah, hopefully
Or or do you want him there? Like, that's interesting. Like, I was thinking about this too. So a buddy of mine who knows I do UCF stuff, but doesn't follow UCF, actually lives in Missouri, texted me and was like, "Hey, I saw you guys signed. Like, he's the real deal. Like, in Missouri in high school, like his name is known, yada yada yada, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's hope we can hold on to him." And he was like, "Well, you guys are pretty bad at quarterback, so I think that's why he wants to go there." Right. And so if that's the case, then yes, I hope he stayed for the entire game and was like, "Oh, this is what we're doing. Oh, I can do that."
Our good friend JP Gilbert and I were talking about it, and JP made the point that no, this is the perfect game to sell a potential quarterback on. Is like, look, Rocco, we really need you, but look how bad we are at quarterback right now. We can't even move the ball in the first half. We can't score. So I don't know if that's a motivator for a young guy that wants to come in and get starting time right away. But it was certainly a tough game to watch if you were a Knights fan. So it certainly didn't feel like putting our best foot forward. But all indications are that he's going to sign with the Knights, and hopefully that sticks. And that's great news for us moving into the 2026 season.
A couple things here. He's 6'3.5", 203 pounds, according to 24/7 Sports. The number 22 ranked quarterback in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports. His offer list, not all that great. Obviously, UCF, Missouri, James Madison, Bowling Green, Cornell, Kent State, Lindenwood, Missouri State, South Dakota State, Tulsa, UNLV, West Virginia. So not exactly killing the offer list there, but
Cornell.
again,
That's a good school. Right. Maybe he's a smart guy. Yeah, he's got that that quarterback IQ.
Again, to your point, I saw that's one. I saw a couple of highlights. It looked like he had a bit of a sidearm release, but again, it's really hard to tell when you're looking at huddle film from 7 miles away from how far the cameras are when you watch that stuff. So, but at least for a little while there, Brian, on Saturday, you saw some like positivity, right? You saw some let's go. You saw some fire emojis. You saw some gifts. And look, the reality is if Scott Frost is going to be successful here in second tenure, he needs to get quarterback right. Full stop. Hard stop. He has to get quarterback right. And if he feels like this kid is a part of getting quarterback right, then let's do that. I think the Kane Archer stuff is interesting. It's unfortunately it's college football 2025. We've heard 100 interviews with Kane Archer. He's been available. Our good friend Andrew Cherico had him for an interview. I think it's on our son's YouTube channel. I think I posted it right. Was a kid who seemed excited about coming to UCF. Obviously, then sees we're taking Rocco Marriott, and I'm sure there's some conversation there about like, well, hey, do I still want to come here and decommits? Now there's rumors about Utah potentially being in the mix, which will be interesting if we have to play Kane Archer at some point in time. And Kane Archer significantly shorter than Rocco Marriott, I think barely 6 foot. So it's just college football 2025. But we have a ton of time to talk next season, but it does set up a really interesting question because there is only one transfer portal now in college football, early January. What do you do if you're UCF? I asked around. I think Rocco could be an early enrollee candidate. I think he was scheduled to enroll early at JMU, which would mean in theory he could be on campus in January, get a full off season of the system. That may make a decision even more interesting. Now, if he showed up in the summer, that's probably a little more challenging to say, hey, this guy got here in June, he's going to start in September. Probably a lot harder. I think you maybe have a better window if he gets here in January. We'll see. Andrew Cherico said he was going to chase that information down and report it out to everybody when he knows it. But I think that could be interesting, Brian. But what do you do? Do you the term bridge quarterback is used a lot, right? There's a bridge quarterback. So you find somebody in the portal that's cheap. You said Cam Fancher earlier. I don't know if that's an option, but just a Cam Fancher-esque quarterback that's out there at a lower dollar valuation. Do you kind of invest in that in this kid, Dante Carr coming in as well? And do you put all your money in the line play, Brian? All your money in line play, all your money in getting kind of a stud receiver, maybe you're running back. It's going to be real interesting to see what UCF does in this offseason.
I mean, they're going to have to go into the portal and get some offensive linemen because not only are we losing some to graduation, I mean, we just need bodies out there, right? We're so depleted at depth at the offensive line that we're going to have to go find them. This is the Big 12. This is big boy football. You win in the trenches, as any coach will tell you. So I think that regardless of what they do at quarterback, they're going to have to go out and get some form of offensive line. Now, they have an advantage in that they're going to have to go out and hire an offensive line coach. And when they do that, hopefully that person is able to bring some guys with them. So hopefully that makes the transfer process a little bit easier from that perspective. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if Rocco Marriott does come in January. He's got that full cycle, as you said, to get ready for the 2026 season. And then at that point, we've seen in the past that Scott Frost is not afraid to put a freshman out there. I mean, he went straight after Mackenzie Milton when he first got hired at UCF during his first tenure. So, I mean, we've seen him do this before. And with the size that Rocco has, perhaps that is, something that he'll be able to work on if he's got a competent line, if he's got a running back room that can support him throwing the ball. Perhaps that is something that we can build on. Obviously, looking ahead to 2026, we don't know what's going to happen because 2025 hasn't wrapped up yet. But from a schedule perspective, things are a little bit more favorable towards UCF. We have less road Big 12 conference games in 2026 than we did in 2025. So hopefully this all plays into our favor, and we'll see how things turn out. But if you're Coach Scott Frost and Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback coach, going to have a huge decision to make as far as, do we go get somebody from the portal? Does Taven come back? What do we pay these guys? Do we, as you said, do we invest the money in an offensive line? A lot of decisions to be made. And Terry has made some comments about, paying players from the portal more so than high school guys. So we're really going to see how this plays out over the coming months.
Yeah. Who knows? Like, this high school recruiting is such a crapshoot, right? Because we've had guys who have been 4-star, 5-star kids that don't pan out, and you've seen guys who are no stars or 2 stars, become, Hall of Famers at UCF, right? So it's really tough to say, hey, this is whatever. I think the good news about the Rocco Marriott situation is, one, at least it shows that Frost is able to go out and identify somebody and say, I want this kid, and again, other schools want him, and whether or not those schools are good or not, it's another story. But like, he was able to identify a player and get them to come to UCF. Seemed like it got some positive momentum around, right? Well, that get other recruits that are thinking about it. A little behind the scenes digging I've heard, quote unquote, we're not done yet, which I think is the phrase, right? A couple more names I think UCF is trying to get out there and flip and maybe make some noise here coming up in early signing day. And again, there's another window in February, so there's still time for that as well. So at least you get some of that positive momentum. And again, I think for me, I feel better because last week, downtrodden Adam was like, what are we doing? There's no plan. We're not going anywhere. We're just jamming our head into the wall. This is terrible. And now, if you're starting to see some of these pieces where you can go, okay, I start to see maybe how this is gonna build out. But at least for a brief moment in time, Brian, there was some excitement on Saturday, and then there was some down periods because our first half of football was played. Then there was some excitement again because at least we won the game, and now it's down periods again because we have BYU. But either way, that's the roller coaster of being a Knight fan, Brian. You and I know this better than anybody. It's always up and down.
Take the positives. The positive is we got a commitment from a quarterback who's potentially the highest rated quarterback we've ever had. We have improved our overall record versus the 2024 season. So, how many booms did we see from Gus with recruiting when he was here as our head coach? And, we know how that played out, 4-8 last season. We've already improved on that this season, even with a beat up team and zero offensive line for Scott Frost to work with. So there are building blocks that are moving in our favor. We're just going to have to get through the rest of this 2025 season and see what 2026 brings.
And here's what sucks is like, I'm already thinking about that, man. Like, we have one game left. The season goes by so fast. You say something I say all the time to my family too, which is I only get 12 of these, right? You only get 12 of these a year and you want to enjoy them. And while there have been times where this was not enjoyable and there have been games where it was not enjoyable, like you blink and all of a sudden you and I are talking about wrapping up the final game of the year already. And it goes by so quickly, it goes by so fast. And sometimes I don't think we can enjoy it as much as we can or should. And then it's gone. You're like, man, I really wish I missed some football, right? But we got one of these left, Brian. Let's at least enjoy this one, right? Who knows what's going to happen? It's likely UCF is going to be on the other end of the scoreboard on this one, but we're due. We got him right where
We're
we want
due for an
him.
upset. Got to have
Maybe
one.
we can play in there for a little bit. Who knows? Like I said, though, Trace will be out there and he'll be covering everything for the game for us. Again, holiday week, Brian, you and I are talking on Sunday. You're probably watching this on Monday. Holiday week out there. We'll try to get all the Sun stuff we usually do around the kingdom. I think you'll see a Pegasus podcast. I think we'll do some form of a Sons of Live situation there. We'll have reports this week. Men's soccer will be taking on Georgetown in round 2. So we'll have some reports on that. Basketball. Nice win for basketball too, by the way. Brian.
Another nice win for basketball. Yeah. No, I'm still in wait and see mode.
I know you are. Some people are still kind of doing conference play. Don't say that to Christian Simmons, though. He'll get very angry at you. But there are some people who are still in that boat, but they have a UCF basketball as a game this week as well, Brian. So a lot of good stuff going on around the kingdom again. UCF will have a bunch of time here to hopefully make us all happy, make us all proud, and or step on our toes and make us cry like they always do. But either way, the Suns are here for you, and we will do that. Brian Peterson is going to go now, congest himself with more ginger ale, I assume, or whatever else that you're
it's keeping me going.
Keeping him going there, although it's a brown liquid. I'm not sure that's actually ginger ale, but
it's ginger ale.
We'll believe ginger ale, because you don't want the real stuff, right? That'd be too hard for you. Everybody have a great week and happy Thanksgiving if we don't talk to you before that, and we'll talk to you all soon. Go Knights.
Charge on.